Good evening. Welcome to everyone. On behalf of the Performing Arts Council, welcome to the first concert of the 2026 Friday Morning Music Club series here at Riderwood. It's wonderful to begin the new year with great music. My name is Frank Savage. I'm the producer of tonight's program, and obviously the producer doesn't do it all alone, not by any means, especially this one couldn't have done it without a lot of help. For those who may be joining us for the first time, the Friday Morning Music Club is a long-standing Washington area a community of musicians and music lovers. This includes performers who generously share their artistry in concerts throughout the region. And we're fortunate to have them with us on a regular basis. Every year there are several of these concerts from this organization that come to Riderwood. And today's ensemble is no exception. We're very happy to have them. So this evening we would welcome our four outstanding musicians as our performers. We have Reed Trevelyan, Nathan Giguère on violins, Victor Lynn on viola, Paul Marshall on cello. And tonight's program pairs two landmark string quartets, the Shostakovich 8th and the Beethoven 13th. These compositions were written more than a century apart, and they form a striking dialogue across time. Shostakovich's mid-20th century introspection meets Beethoven's late life vision. And despite the distance of time, both works share a powerful emotional intensity. And I think you'll experience that tonight. Before we begin, just a couple of announcements. Please take a moment to silence your electronic devices. And then there is a donation basket available in the back of the hall or the chapel as you go out for those who wish to make a donation to support future concerts. At the end of the performance, we ask that you don't rush out all at once, but take your time. And also take your program with you. You know, this is a program for tonight, and this program will probably never happen again here. But on the back, there are upcoming events, so you can take that with you and see what's coming up next. So without any further ado, let's give our performers a warm Riderwood welcome.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Frank. Yeah, we are all musicians from the Friday Morning Music Club. We're all amateur musicians. We're just doing this for fun, and it's truly such an honor for us to play for such a large audience in such a beautiful space. So we're just super happy and grateful to be here to share this music with you. And yeah, what a great turnout. We're so excited. So I just wanted to say a couple words about our first piece, which is the Shostakovich Quartet number 8. I think both quartets on this program tonight are landmark compositions. They're also quite challenging works, both to play, but I think also to listen to. There's a lot going on, and there's a real story to be told in both of these works that you might not hear the kind of, catchy melodies that you might expect in lighter compositions, one may say. So just briefly, the Shostakovich Quartet was written in a very tumultuous period of Shostakovich's life. It was written in 1960 in 3 days. This was during the time that Shostakovich had been asked were basically forced to rejoin the Communist Party. He had a very fraught relationship with the Soviet leadership and was sort of constantly at odds with the musical censors for writing music that was deemed too subversive, and then he sort of had to come back and toe the party line, and then repeated that process a few times. This quartet has the subtitle to the victims of fascism and war, but it's not clear if Shostakovich actually chose that subtitle himself or if that was sort of imposed on the piece by the Soviet authorities. There are tons of conflicting accounts of what this piece is meant to say, why Shostakovich wrote it. There's even thoughts from one of his friends that this might be interpreted as his suicide note, that they thought that he was planning to take his own life at the time. He did not end up doing that. But regardless of what the piece means, it is a real emotional journey that has some really sort of intense highs. You know, you can hear the sort of violence of war, but you can also hear the sort of quiet aftermath after the dust has settled, and there's a lot of kind of bleak stillness in the music. But there are also a few glimmers of hope. There's a little bit of light scattered throughout the piece, and so I think those are interesting to listen for. And one more tidbit, if you're curious, is Shostakovich has a sort of calling card that he includes in lots of his music, which is the DSCH motif. In German musical notation, DSCH is D, E flat, C, B, but those are also Shostakovich's initials, Dmitri SCH Shostakovich. So you'll hear it all over the piece, and yeah, let's just play it for you. D, E flat, C, B. So keep your ears open and you'll hear that probably 50 times in this piece. So, all right. Without further ado, thanks again for having us. do a little switcheroo now.
So our next piece is by Ludwig van Beethoven. He wrote 16 total string quartets, and they're kind of roughly split into 3 different categories. The first set is, as he calls it, he catalogs it as Opus 18, and those are very light. They're much lighter, relatively speaking. They're coming from the style of his predecessors like Haydn and Mozart, and then. I guess roughly around that time, when he was in his late 20s, he started hearing a ringing in his ears, and he tried all these different cures, throughout his whole life, he was trying to find all these cures, and as his hearing got progressively worse, and the ringing became kind of a more gradual deafness, and during this time, as his hearing was getting worse and worse, he wrote some of his most famous works, like his Fifth Symphony, his Third Symphony, his Fifth Symphony, Seventh Symphony, and he wrote a set of middle quartets, and that's another set of 6, and it kind of, another set of 5. I'm sorry. It kind of depends on how you split them up, but you can say that these are his middle quartets. And then, by the end of his life, he was completely deaf. He could barely hear anything. He had a couple of devices where he could, if he certain notes he could hear on the piano, and it was during this time he wrote his Ninth Symphony, and then he wrote several late piano sonatas, and then after that he dedicated the last 2 to 3 years of his life writing another set of quartets, which are called his late string quartets, and it's almost like he decided that. He was done with the classical era. He had experimented and done enough with what we would think of now as the Romantic era, and he was just kind of skipping ahead to the 20th century. It's almost like I did that already, and I'm just going to keep going. And meanwhile, everyone else is, around him is still kind of getting out of the classical era. He's considered a transitional figure during this time. From the classical era to Romantic era, and these late quartets, so they kind of just go past that. Like it's almost like he skipped ahead to the 20th century. And the composer Igor Stravinsky said that about one of his late works, one of his late quartets, that it would be forever modern, which is I think a really good way of putting it. So the piece we're going to play is Opus 130 Quartet in B flat. Sometimes it's called the 13th Quartet. I may say that on the program. There are like a million different ways to name these quartets for some reason. And Opus 130 Quartet it's one of his late quartets. And it's really interesting. There are several reasons why it's very interesting. The format is very different. Usually you get like a standard string quartet, kind of like a standard symphony, is in 4 movements. And this one is in 6. And the first movement it's different for sure. There's a lot going on. It's very busy. And it kind of goes back and forth between the slow section that opens up the work, and then it kind of interjects with this flurry of notes, and then it goes back to the slow section, and it's very back and forth until finally it kind of gets going. But then you hear the slow part come back a couple times, including at the very end of the first movement, and then the second, third, fourth, and fifth movements are like instead of being like formal movements in a symphony, they're almost like little vignettes. They're shorter than what you would typically think of as a classical movement in a symphony or an earlier string quartet. They're shorter, and they kind of contain the same mood within each one. I mean, they're all very contrasting. Or maybe like a little box of truffles. They're all just these kind of bite-sized movements, more or less. And a couple of one notable one is the fifth movement, which is probably one of the most famous things that he wrote. Maybe not quite up there with the Ninth Symphony, but it's he called the fifth movement, that's the slow movement of the work, it's called cavatina, which is, it's like an aria, sort of a slow, sad aria from an opera. There's obviously, no, we're not going to sing, which is a good thing for you guys. But it's kind of like a song without words in a way. And he wrote this, a lot of times people think that he's, writing this during the time he was trying and really failing at raising his adopted nephew, Carl, and realizing what a terrible father figure he was. And that's kind of one interpretation I've read many people say. But one thing that's also famous about this movement is in the 1970s, NASA launched Voyager 1 and 2. And there basically is two unmanned spacecraft that are kind of going in roughly different directions, and they're out past Pluto now. I don't know exactly where they are, but I think they don't give it any signals anymore. But they decided on each of these they're going to send out two identical golden records, and they had just as a symbolic gesture. Right? And the idea is that they were going to send out the best music that the Earth had to offer. And so they pressed these two golden records, and there are also things like people saying hello in all these different languages, and I think there are instructions that if anyone finds them out there, how they could, play the records, and it was really more of a symbolic thing than anything else. But one of the things they included was the cavatina from the string quartet, which is just this almost confessional. I mean, this is very, very sincere, moving. There's one part in the middle in particular where the rhythm gets very strange. It almost sounds like someone kind of silently sobbing in another room. It's very, the whole quartet in and of itself doesn't have that mood, but it's like all of his emotion he just put into the fifth movement. And then the sixth movement is a finale, and it's totally different mood. It's very lighthearted and it sounds like it's joking around a lot. It's actually a replacement for the original finale. The original finale he wrote was a very complex fugue, and he was actually convinced by his publisher that it would be too hard to sell, so he agreed. I feel bad for whoever had to go and approach Beethoven. He was very temperamental, and ask him to rewrite the finale, because he thought very highly of this fugue that he wrote, but he agreed. He actually willingly did that, and so we're not going to play the fugue tonight. We're going to play the finale that it's published with, the one that he rewrote.
One day we'll play the fugue.
Yeah, one day we'll play the fugue. Some people play 7 movements, and they put a lot of times they'll put the fugue as the second to last movement, and then the rewritten finale is the actual, as like an epilogue at the end. It's a lot of playing. It's very hard. So I hope you enjoy it. It's a very complicated piece to listen to, but there are a lot of melodies that you can kind of, you're not going to hear a lot of what you might expect, like from the Fifth Symphony or the Ninth Symphony, that have these very lyrical melodies. There's some of that, but there's a lot of it is like a puzzle. Sometimes putting this together among us, it felt almost more like we were solving an equation, than actually playing a standard string quartet. So I hope you enjoy it. So thank you very much. I appreciate the applause. We have an encore. It's not on a program. It's 2 minutes long. It's you may recognize this. Should I say what it is? Yeah, I may as well. It's so it's if you're familiar with French composer Claude Debussy, this is from one of his books of piano preludes, The Girl with the Flaxen Hair. And I transcribed this originally for piano, and I transcribed this for a viola quartet. So what that means is that it's instead of a first violin, it's a first viola, second violin, second viola, cello. So the one violin is more of a second violin part, and it's just the first violin is really just the first viola instead. So that's why I have my viola. So I think it gave it more the sound I was looking for when I transcribed it. So I hope you like it.